Hello everyone, welcome back. Now one of the common questions that I always get in my classes is, hey, you're teaching me with this dataset, so can you please share me a dataset related to this, or how can I create my own dataset? So that's one of the common questions that my students is going to ask me in each and every live classes. Now I know most of you will have the same questions. Hence I thought, okay, why don't I create a video so that it will be helpful for everyone. So in today's video, I'm going to share you as how you can make use of sklearn library and get the various datasets that are available inside it. I am now already in the official documentation page of sklearn library, guys. Now here we have something called as dataset loading utilities. Now in this page of dataset loading utilities, they actually talk about as how this sklearn dataset package is composed of. So they are going to say that, okay, the sklearn dataset package embeds some small toy datasets which are actually included in this getting started section, and they also talk about a general dataset API and what are the dataset loaders that we have available with us. So dataset loaders, which means like, okay, these are the datasets which are already available and which will help us in loading the dataset for our Google Colab session or Jupyter Notebook session. And they also talk about as how we can make use of dataset features and we can get the data from various websites. So we are going to look into all these use cases very shortly, guys. Okay. Now we are going to start with toy datasets. Now in this toy dataset, so I'll just click on this 7.1 section. So this toy dataset helps us to get the data which is already available. So it says like scikit-learn comes with a few small standard dataset which do not require to download any file from the external website. Okay, so that's the best part about this toy datasets. Now in this toy dataset, we have Boston house pricing dataset. As you know, it's one of the very common machine learning dataset which we use it to perform regression because I want to predict the house prices of the city Boston. And this is followed by iris dataset, which is a famous multi-class classification dataset. And we have something called as diabetes dataset. And we have something called as load underscore digits, and we use it to perform multi-class classification. And apart from that, we have load and return this physical exercise linear dataset. And we have wine dataset to perform the classification. And we also have a breast cancer dataset to perform classification. You can clearly see that in this toy dataset itself, you're actually getting two binary classification, I could say, and two multi-class classification, and one is a regression task. And I think this is also a regression one. I haven't checked out that. So I think this also looks to be a linear regression. Now let's do one thing. Let's see how we can load an example dataset from this sklearn library, starting with this toy datasets. So let's select diabetes dataset. I'll click on this load underscore diabetes. Now this load underscore diabetes, the way that we will call is, first we'll have to import sklearn.datasets, and from sklearn datasets we'll have to import this load diabetes, and then we'll have to call this load diabetes function. Okay, the parameter it is going to say, okay, return xy as true. So which means like, okay, if I want to like it says like if it is true, it is going to return data and target instead of it as a bunch. Okay, so let me show you what it actually means. So I'll write as from sklearn.datasets import load diabetes. Okay, and then once this is imported, I'll load this diabetes data. I'm going to say that since I'll be loading x and y separately, that is data and target separately, I'm going to say it as load underscore diabetes, and I'll say it as x underscore y is equal to true. So that is what it would mean, isn't it? Return x underscore y. Okay. So this will load my x and y, that is data and the targets, to the respective variables of x and y. Now if I display x.shape, so and y.shape, and I'll display my x, see, I have a data set that would look like this. Alright guys, Now when I load my data set with return xy as true, so x will be a numpy array and y will also be a numpy array. And when we are loading like this, in this scenario, I'll only get my input data, that is x, and my output labels y, but I'll not get the other information about the data. So what I'll do is, this time while loading my data set, I'll say it as diabetes and return xy as false. And then I'll show you how to load the individual data, guys, and why it is actually helpful. So I'm going to say it as x is equal to diabetes dot, and inside this I can get the, in this scenario, data. So it's going to get me the data, and I'll say y is equal to diabetes dot target. And observe this is very important. I'm going to create a data frame. Now this time, while creating a data frame, first I'll import pandas as pd. Now I'm going to say it as pd dot data frame, and for the let's assume x. Okay, I'll just add x for now, and for this I'm going to say as columns is equal to, I can say it as diabetes dot feature underscore names. Now display our data frame, guys. Did you observe how easy it was for me to create a data frame by just loading the data from my sklearn library? And the best part is I can add the target as well. So I can say target, and I can set it equal to y, and I can now display my data frame. So I now have a data set with me, which will help me to perform this task of, so this is the task that I'll be doing it for regression, guys. So that is what this diabetes data set would mean. Now if I see over here, it says diabetes data set, it has 10 baseline variables: age, sex, body mass index, average blood pressure, and 6 blood serum measurements were obtained for each 442 diabetes patients, and as well as the response of the interest, and there is a quantitative measure of the disease progression 1 year after the baseline. So this is a typical task of regression, guys. Okay, so in this way we can load the data set, which is a toy data set, directly from my sklearn library. So we have explored toy data set. Now let's look into real world data sets. Now if I click on this real world data set, we also have some data set which has been created from the real world, and one of the famous one is the Olivetti faces data set. So this data set actually contains the faces images which are taken between April 1992 to April 1994. Okay, so in order to load those faces, we'll say sklearn.datasets fetch Olivetti. So we'll specify this function and we can get the data, that is we can load the images data, guys. So let me just show you how it would look like. So I can say it directly like this. So this time I'll say from sklearn.datasets import fetch Olivetti faces. Okay, and now I can just use the same format. So I can specify, I can just call this function and I can save it inside my data. So I'll say data is equal to fetch Olivetti faces, and I can now call data. So you can clearly see that when I call this fetch Olivetti faces, this is actually getting downloaded from the external website. Okay, now when I say data dot, and this will help me to get the data. So data and data.dasr, images and target. So these are the 4 parameters that I'm getting over here. So data means where each row corresponds to raveled face images, which has the original image size of 64 by 64. I'll say data.shape. You'll understand the shape, guys. So here the shape is 400, 4096. Okay. So 4096 is nothing but this one, guys, 64 into 64, because this has actually flattened my images and it is stored it as a single row over here for me, which will make my life easy when I'm loading it for my deep learning model. Alright, so you can use this, and likewise we have other data sets, guys. So we have fetch 20 news groups. So this is going to load the file names and data for 20 news groups data set. Obviously classification, we have another classification which is a vectorized data, And then we have the labeled faces in the wild. So this is also a classification. So you can clearly see there are many classification data, and there is one regression data, and this regression data is for California housing data set. Okay, and we also have generated data set. Now this is one of the common way, and which I love to actually do it, guys, to let you know, like we have various functions that which are available inside my sklearn library, which will actually help me in generating the data set. And whenever I want to show about okay, this is how my model is learning, so we'll be making use of such data sets, guys. One of the common data set that I'll be using is make blobs. So I'll show you how it would look like. I think that would give you more intuition on the same. So from sklearn.datasets, import make blobs, and now I can say it as data. Okay, I'll just bring over here, and this is going to return X and Y. So I'll have to say data comma labels, and then I just have to specify some data. Let me just say it like this. Okay, and then I can just go ahead and create the blobs. So I'll say 100. All right, so number of features as 2 and number of centers as 3. Alright, we now have a plot, guys. So I have created a plot using pla.scatter, and yes, so this is how the make blobs has created my data set. You can clearly see that this will help me to create a data set for the performing the task of classification. Now apart from that, we also have the other functionality to load the data set, that is the loading the other data set from a different website. So this comes under the section of loading other data sets. So here it says scikit-learn also embeds a couple of sample images which are actually published under CC, that is Creative Commons license by their authors, and we can load those sample data sets, and we can also load the data set which is actually present in SVM Lite, and this SVM Lite and the libsvm format data set can be downloaded from this website, guys, that is from this university website. Okay, so we can load the data set which are in libsvm format from here, and we can also download the data set from opalml.org repository as well. See, here they are actually loading the mice protein data set which is actually present in this opalml.org. So these are the various ways where you can load the data set which is actually already present inside my sklearn library. So you don't have to search around over in the internet to look for your data set. You can just use this library, that is sklearn library, and make your life easy, so that you will be spending more time on your learning rather than going outside and searching for the data set. Alright, guys, so all the best for your learning journey. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and if you're interested in learning deep learning or machine learning, do check out the machine learning and the deep learning playlist that we already have on our YouTube channel. I hope you find it useful. Thank you. I'll see you next time.